Hey guys, you're here with Arthur House. I'm your host, Ruben Cabral. People introduce themselves.
Joanne.
Momaji.
Salam. Benaldi.
Gracia, Serena,
David.
Franklin.
Okay, and today the topic of discussion is going to be, what does it mean to be a man? Anyone want to start?
I think when bringing that topic into question, it becomes a little bit skewed nowadays because we have normal male traits that are being demonized, calling it toxic, such as being competitive, such as wanting to protect family and friends is now seen as toxic, and what it means to be a man is just getting polluted nowadays with different ideologies.
Given the rise in male suicide rates, would you say that think that there is some form of toxic masculinity currently going on in the Western society? Yeah, that'd be you, David.
Anyone else can answer as well.
I'm asking you that question.
The increase of male suicide rates, I believe, is due to men feeling like they don't have a place in the world anymore. Because if you look at ancient societies where men desired to die in battle, you had these soldiers going outright to war, knowing that they very well could die, but they were reportedly as happy as they could be in those areas. But now we have men who are subordinated and kept into office jobs right now where they can't even really be men, where they can't even really be the breadwinners nowadays, because it's now become much more of a equal economic situation in family settings. So I feel like men are losing their purpose in a way, and that's what's causing the increase in suicides rather than the traits that we have possessed throughout this whole time.
So what's a man's purpose?
That's exactly what I was going to go on to say. I feel like the definition of a man should change, and it has, and the people who are sad and depressed and are committing suicide are most likely the ones that don't understand that the image and perspective of a man evolves. Like everything else in history and life, things evolve, and what we see as a man nowadays has changed. And if they feel like they don't have a place, it's because they're stuck with an old image or view of what a man should be, which is a problem.
So what's the new view?
Well, I feel like everything is just changing. Like, I wouldn't say, like, okay, for example, a man is supposed to be strong and look after his family and all that stuff. Like, cool, you can believe what you want to believe and stuff like that, but don't instill in your mind the mindset that, oh, I've got to do this, and have like a fixed mindset, because you have to look at things like in the bigger picture. And like, I feel like people need to be more like free in what they do in a type of way, and yeah.
So how would you reconcile that with the idea that men are losing their purpose? So if they can't, say, employ that idea that as a man they're supposed to protect their sister, their mum, their wife, their daughter, all this, and they can't employ that, then how are they supposed to have their purpose?
They haven't lost their purpose. Their purpose can be expressed in different ways. It doesn't have to be one sort of way. Like you're saying, oh, they have to be strong and this and that. But then with that, you get the idea that boys are not supposed to show emotions and stuff like that. But that's stupid. Like, as in, they can't be what? Oh, can I swear? Never mind. They can't be like, what's this?
Weak or
weak.
I feel
I
like
think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's difficult to not show vulnerability, but in sense of not showing weakness, that's something that I think we should.
No, but why
boys.
do you need to teach them that? Like, if a boy wants to cry, they can cry. Like,
I think
why is that a problem?
I think the whole concept of not showing emotion is so you are able to, let's say, shoulder more responsibility of other people. Let's say you are a boy who grows up to be a man, you marry a woman, you have 3 kids, for example. You will have more emotional people in your family, and it does no good for you yourself to now become a nervous wreck at any sign of struggle or, I don't know, any sign of difficulty in your life. If you as a man yourself from a young age have learned to know that your emotions and your sensitivity comes last, and you put everyone else's first, that is what that whole don't show emotion ideology is trying to show. Because regularly when boys are in an emotional state, is due to the fact that something horrible has happened to them. Either they've lost a family member, either they've been in a fight. But in each of those cases, there is another party who is also hurting. So it's teaching those boys that put other people first, and then you will come afterwards. And I feel like that's even going into more of a religious Christian argument of how God our Father models how men should be in the world by putting himself first, by putting his son first instead of us. So I feel like that's how men should be. And when they are like that, society, in my opinion, works better.
Okay, guys, looking at the statistics, it shows that the highest suicide rate among the UK is men aged 45 to 49. So I think, so given that, I wouldn't say that the problem isn't like the way we're raising our children, because that's evident, you know, given what I just said, you know. This is a problem, like, I think it's a societal issue more and less is the way the way we treat our older generation, if you know what I mean. But what do you guys think?
It's because the times are changing, like what Serena said. It's because the times is changing, like what Serena said, and so therefore, like, logically speaking, from 45 to 49, they can't really adapt to the situation, and they still have their own stick mindset because they've always lived like the way with what they think and their own beliefs. So logically speaking, they would feel different, and so there's a chance that they would commit suicide. Logically speaking.
I agree. I feel like, as you said, the men aged 45 to 49 in the UK is the same generation which were born when coal mining was still a big thing, and like manual labour was the way to go for men, and all of that has disappeared from the world. And as you said, they don't feel welcome into the world. Everyone is afraid of change. Change is something humans have always tried to avoid, find it abnormal. And I feel like we, as the new generation, haven't done enough to help them, because they were born in a time where GCSEs or A-levels or any sort of formal education and wasn't necessary to have at all. And now they're just living in a different time.
Alright, so what you guys are saying basically is that men of an older generation have lost their purpose, and as a result, we don't really know what it means to be a man anymore because we don't have anyone to look onto now.
I don't think it's we don't know what it means to be a man. I feel like it's more we use our own intelligence and common sense to try and reason what it should be what it means to be a man, while we already have biological examples in the whole of the animal kingdom of what it means to be a man. But we as humans, because we try to say we are better than animals, we try to distance ourselves so much so that we even go to try and rewrite biology and rewrite true common sense and replace it with our own reasoning. And that, in my point of view, is a huge folly on the human's path.
Okay, thank you. Would you guys say that toxic masculinity is a thing?
100%.
100.
Well, it depends on how you're defining it.
Okay, how would you define toxic masculinity, just to see?
Well, I don't generally believe in, but I think the, say, agreed upon definition is that, say, a man would take upon so much responsibility as to say that women can't do certain things and certain things are just for men. But if you get a female's view on what toxic masculinity is, that'd be helpful.
All right, ladies. Yes, John.
I think it's like suppressing a man and like forcing them to, like, just imaging them in a certain way, and like kind of saying, oh, you're not able to cry because you're a man, you're meant to do this and do that. And I feel like it loses their place of identity as well, because when someone's just like barking at you, when especially at a young age when you're still trying to find yourself, it's like, okay, so this is how I'm meant to act, and then they end up like suppressing themselves and just acting a certain way, if you know what I mean.
I mean, given what you said, would you feel like you actually have met a toxic male in your life?
A toxic male?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What attributes did he possess to make him seem toxic?
Serena's your answer that.
I feel like it's just like when people are small-minded and like the thing with me, I don't like when people have certain views on things and like I don't know how I would explain it, but like it's just when people are small-minded.
When they're stuck in their ways, could you say? Or like, they're not willing to look for new ways.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like they're not willing to look past what they actually believe. Like, cool, everyone can have their own opinion and believe the things that they want to believe. But like, for example, what you do is over there. But when you're talking to me, don't bring your views, like your closed-minded views, and start saying all of these things that will trigger me. Hey, listen, trigger me. Because it's just like, what the hell are you doing? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
But I have a question: is that trait only single to men, or is it both?
No, yeah, it's both. Like, I feel like girls do the same, and like, I don't know if you would call it toxic femininity.
Somebody made an article about that.
Yeah, and like girls as well. Like, we can't start putting all the blame to boys and men, because girls do the same. They're exactly the same. It goes both ways.
For me, toxic masculinity isn't. I understand where Joanne and Serena are coming from, but for me, it also feels like they're placing the blame a tiny bit on them. For me, toxic masculinity comes from the home. It comes from your parents saying no matter what you do, will always love you, but always hold you to some sort of standard and expectation. And you're forced to live up to them in a way,
but that's for
subconsciously. But it's worse for boys. It's worse. There's so much more expected. Your mums have probably told you about how much they love you, and no matter what you do will make them happy. But some suggestions you'll bring up and they give you that look that you just know that I'm being held to some sort of expectation. That's what toxic masculinity is, because it's hard to be a boy, but it's hard to be a girl. It's just, that's what it is for me.
An example in my household, is my little brother. He cries so much, and it's like, I talk about toxic masculinity and not being toxic to males. However, like, sometimes it's the ideology in your head as well, that what David was saying about a male's purpose, and then how they're meant to like be the head of a household and stuff like that. And then sometimes I feel like it's pressing them to like not feel any emotions as well, because I'll tell my brother, like, why are you crying? You're meant to be a man. Like, because my dad's not here right now, I'll be like, you're meant to be the man of the house. But it's like later on I'll talk to him, because I'll be like, no, you're allowed to show emotions, but this is where I was coming from. And I feel like because loads of people aren't educated, so like, let's say my mom says that to him a lot, so some people aren't educated and won't be able to talk to the boys, and they'll grow up with like a very fixed mindset on certain things, which may make them even downgrade women. Because I feel like I watched this thing one time, and then it was about a man, and then he lived in his household where his woman was only allowed to wear makeup in the house, and he was like proper everyday gym, stuff like that, and then his woman had to cook for him. She was a stay-at-home mum type of thing. But it was like really downgrading for women to say, oh, you're only allowed to wear makeup in the house, you only wash the dishes, I don't want you to touch certain things. And I feel like that starts from childhood, and what a man's meant to do and then what a woman's meant to do. So
Okay, so on your point, like, let's say, because like people, like, when I was a kid, right, like I used to cry a lot, but then my mom used to say that, like, you know, like I shouldn't cry because there's no reason to. There's like, it doesn't lead to a good cause. And it's not just with me. She did it with my sister as well. If you just sit there and cry, then nothing really happens. And so I don't think that's like a cause for toxic masculinity. I'd say that it's more supportive, because like, if you have a parent, your best goal is that you want them to become your child to become something that they want you to be. You want you to achieve your full potential, and so obviously they do set you at a high expectation, but that's not toxic. That's expected, right? Mm-hmm. So then, in your case, for like how that leads to downgrading women, that's not. It wouldn't be like the crying thing. Mm-hmm. It would be something more direct at the home. So like, if it was shown between the actual dad and the mother, and I see that like it happens a lot, but then like there's not really that much you can avoid with that, because certain people have different households, and it's not fair to say that it's toxic of them and it's their fault. You know, it doesn't make sense.
I think
What-
the main thing.
sorry. What I meant by that was not just saying, you're not allowed to cry, but saying you're not allowed to cry because you're a boy and because you're a man. I feel like that's what's toxic.
Okay, thank you very
I
much.
think the last thing I want to say about this is like there are toxic males, there are toxic females, but I think it's damaging to call a whole personality trait of being a man, masculinity and femininity toxic, because those two things aren't.
Yeah.
But there are people who exhibit bad
Those
traits of it,
Yeah.
just like in anything, because we're all humans and we're all flawed.
All right, thank you. Next topic now we have is, what is it to be a female?
Hey guys, we just took a short break, but now we're back.
I have an opinion. So obviously I must have been on Instagram just scrolling and swiping, yeah. And there must have been this mum who was like a stay-at-home mum, like she was cooking for her husband and everything.
I
And she
heard
posted
about
on
that.
Instagram, and then what's it called again? People in the comments were like, "Oh, why are you doing that? Does your man let you do this? Does your man let you go that?" So I just wanted to ask, how would you feel about that?
About the woman who was just like all she did, and she said she was
Exactly.
happy about it, just cooking, being
Staying
with the
at home,
kids.
looking after the child, but then
I mean,
when people in the comments are like, "Oh, does your man suppress you? You can do what you want. Why being a stay-at-home from? You shouldn't do that."
I mean, I
How
feel
do you
like
feel?
people are so obsessed with the idea of like trying to be progressive and have women,
100.
like be working and stuff. They forgot on the idea that they should be able to have a choice in what they want to do as well, you know.
Yes.
Like if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, fine. It doesn't like you should be able to have that choice, because that's what's been like that's what people have been fighting for. Essentially, your right to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Your right to choose. But yeah, what do you think?
I feel like it's understanding your identity as well, because like you said, everyone should feel like the right to choose what they want to do as a woman, and I feel like as long as that's available to them, the choice of what to do, how like the choice to vote and stuff like that, how it's come, then it should be fine. And by Google, like it says, the definition of a female is a woman, doesn't say a woman, it said a sex that can bear offspring or produce an egg biologically.
Would any of you in this group consider a man who transitions from a man to a female as a woman?
Absolutely not.
Why?
I feel like biologically, you even transgender people, and I know this is an opinion that people that look down upon, but you were born a male, and as the definition by law as well, a female is a person who can carry offspring and produce eggs. If you cannot, my friend, you are a male.
Wait, that doesn't make sense. There are women that are not fertile, so they can't produce offspring, and you're saying that they're not.
But
women.
most women can produce an egg.
I think what she means is like, you know, you actually
Plus.
Or have
like,
female sex
genetic
organs.
structure.
Plus,
You
women
have
can also.
female sex organ as a man.
Yeah, and then
More,
you can also-
more
I think
hang on,
it's
wait.
easier just to bring it down to chromosomes. That's like
Yeah,
the
in
main
terms of
argument
Yeah.
people use.
Moreover, women can also use IVF
Why are
if
you
they have
delving
no.
so deep into it? You know what I
So,
mean.
so can a man that has transferred to a woman?
Because he does have the
he doesn't
X
have a
chromosome.
womb.
No, but then like
He doesn't have a
yeah.
womb.
You don't need to.
can't
Just
carry
bring your
it.
stomach.
No.
Like,
No,
You
I
really
feel
want to
like
technically make offspring. Yeah.
I feel like you can be whoever you want to be. Like, who are we to judge what you want to be and what you want to be? As long as it doesn't, like, for people who are against it, as long as it doesn't interfere with your, like, personal, like, your direct life. Like, cool, you might have to see, like stuff like that.
They can't see.
They can't see
Too
it.
much.
So
They
it's
can't
But,
see.
like, stuff that is
She means
influenced
a
by,
rainbow flag.
like,
Yeah,
by
that's
LGBTQ.
A plus. Don't forget the plus. Though.
Yeah, plus, like, although we see stuff like that, as long as it doesn't affect you directly, you shouldn't have a say in whatever, because at the end of the day, God's gonna judge this person and this person. So, anything that happens to them is what happens to them. but you have to focus on yourself because that's the way that you're gonna go heaven or hell.
I don't-
Do you want to know
So what do you think about how let's say for example you're in public
I'm in
and someone
public.
asks you an opinion about trans people
I don't
so,
mind.
or
I don't
LGBT
care.
Are
I'm not
you-
against it.
let's say if you were against it
I'm not.
no let's say
So I can't answer that question.
okay then
Ask someone that's against it.
okay but it's just hypothetical
No, ask someone that's
okay
against it.
David at the end let's say it's not like you don't like them you're just against like things,
You don't
yeah?
agree with it, basically.
Yeah.
And someone asks for your opinion in public. Are you gonna tell them your actual opinion, or are you actually gonna like tone it down?
What I'm going to say is that I tolerate them, but there's a difference between tolerance and acceptance.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
my personal belief on it is that it's a sin. But just like everyone else, we are all sinners. The wages of sin is death, no matter what the sin is. Whether if you lie or whether if you murder someone, it's still the same price. So you can't... My main issue is just that religious institutions such as churches and mosques rewriting their whole religious standpoint based on a few people's emotions. That shouldn't happen. Because
true.
in...
I agree with
Because
that.
in...
That's been done in the past.
Because
When have
no,
they-
but when it's been done
Yeah,
in the
they
past,
have.
societies fail.
When
Like for
David-
example, in the Egyptian society, Akhenaten, when he tried to make himself a god, Egypt started to collapse. In the Roman society, when they started to mix paganism with Christianity, their society started to collapse. Even in Judaism as well, many times, if you read the Old Testament of the Bible, when they start mixing pagan religions with their religion, their society starts to collapse.
They get slaves again and all that.
So what I'm trying to say is that humans, with our religious standpoints, we should keep those as absolutes because that is the religion. We shouldn't try to muddy the waters and say sin is no longer sin just because somebody feels that way. Because it doesn't matter if you're a murderer or rapist, this, that, and the other, it's still a sin. I'm not going to go and stone you. I'm not going to go and condemn you because I also am a sinner. And as a result of that, I cannot pass judgment upon you. All I can say is that seek forgiveness from God in all sin because we are all sinners. So therefore, I'm not going to condemn you, but I'm not also going to go and say, yes, you go, that's acceptable, because it truly, in fact, is not.
Cool. So that was a religious take, but what would you, Franklin, since you're an atheist, what would you take on this? What's your take on this?
I genuinely don't care. They don't affect me. Like I really don't care because they don't affect my life. Like partially I don't know any of them, and like I see
of
that
them?
there's I don't know any of the LGBT community, but I don't.
Like Peter denying Jesus 3 times.
But at the end of the day, I do see like
don't.
it's coming into like shows and stuff. They want more representation, and I'm fine with that. I just feel like it represent. I feel like in stuff like actions, where there's not supposed to be like a romance thing, and then they now add more LGBTQ romance into the show. It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
I feel like they're dragging
Movies,
Hold on.
every
Calm,
TV show I watched
Bro,
it just
bro, chill,
has
chill,
to be. I'm sorry, not all of them need them. I don't hate you, yeah. But for example, I'm just say quickly, just 10 seconds.
Alright, cool.
Disney Channel, right? I used to watch Disney Channel as a child, yeah, and I used to see. I used to watch Disney Channel, yeah, and let's say we used to watch Disney Channel not because of like the romance and that, because it was enjoyable. But now I go to Disney Channel and now I'm seeing gay relationships.
No
So
way.
therefore, it's like they're training them.
Yeah,
from a young age.
Can I just say,
Wait,
there's
just-
a show
just
on
to say-
Disney
just
Channel,
Turning the
Andy
frogs
Mac.
gay.
And
That shocked me.
what's it about?
I felt like it was
Hey.
too. It was too. They're introducing a controversial topic to children, which they're not ready to bear. I feel like in media and all the shows, they're trying to. I understand where you're coming from. You want to be treated equally, but please stop shoving it down our throats.
Yeah.
The thing is
That's
that
what-
the
No,
community
wait,
wants to
hold
take
on.
that.
Taking that into account, though, us as black people, that's been done for us as
I was
well.
gonna say that.
Because remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was this one That's a Raven episode, right?
Yeah.
Tackled racism. That did a lot for us, you know. And like just the issue of representation itself is more of like isn't. I understand the point of shoving it down our throats, and it has to be done meaningfully. And I feel like that's sort of the issue that's in today's society. But right now, representation is quite important in the fact that you need, like, some people need to see themselves on screen.
Ruben, I'm just gonna go straight to the point here. Like, black representation is important because when you go out as a child and you see one black person, do you not think that like you can tell that they're black? But if you see a gay man, you can't.
Like you don't go up to a gay man and say, "Hey, are you gay?" Like you can see if someone's black. Like their sexual preference doesn't really matter.
It's not even, and even on top of that, it's not to. It's not to like stop. They want people to see you and see that it's acceptable. It's not that it's just like they want children to think that, oh, I don't have an issue if I feel like this. And so like that's the community's goal. So it makes sense that they would put it in a lot of shows. I just think that you can't prioritize it over like actual contents, or making the show good. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
What do you
Joanne wanted to say
what I wanted to ask for all the people that said they didn't care. Do you know how some schools are introducing it from like primary school as a topic to learn about it? So it's like they'll probably ask you at home as well, like, Mum, what do you think about this issue? Or Dad, what do you think? So you can't say now you don't care because then you're gonna have to care and explain it to your child. So what do you think? What would you explain to your child about the community and how it came about, if it's okay? Your personal opinion.
I'll tell my child, some boys like girls, some girls like girls, some boys like boys. Some people, they want to change. Like, maybe they weren't happy with the way that they were born, so they want to change it. It's the same way that, like, then we'll use some anagrams or something like that, metaphors, all this stuff. It's the same way, if you didn't like the red top I bought you and you wanted me to go and change it for you, I'll go buy you a blue one because it's your favourite colour. Stuff like that. Like, I feel like it's not hard to explain it, but I don't like the way that like schools are bringing it in to teach it to like little children, like younger children, like they don't care about stuff like that. Never have they asked, like they don't even care about relationships and stuff like that. Because I know, sure, when I was in whatever year it is, when I was 4 years old, I just wanted to go and play outside with the sand, like get my shoes muddy, all of this stuff. I didn't care about if I liked boys, if I liked girls, none of that. But I feel like we should start. I feel like it's just a parent's job to do that. Like to instill it into the child, but then obviously children, they learn from school as well. Like most of the teachings that we get is from school and stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, thank you all for that discussion. It's been After Hours, and hopefully you tune in again.